Panthers lose again, this time in L.A. They are now 1-5. It was the Rams taking it 24-10. Joining me, as always, Locked On Panthers host Julian Council.
Yep.
Julian, for a 14-point loss that wasn't expected to be a win, there's actually a lot to talk about, but let's talk about the game itself. I thought it was a pretty well-managed game at the beginning by interim coach Steve Wilks. Lots of time of possession on their side, lots of Christian McCaffrey, lots of defense. What happened from there?
What happened from there is what's happened all season long. You don't have a quarterback who's capable of winning the football game for you. And in the NFL, at this level, it's hard for anyone, including the Carolina Panthers, to win with the game plan that they had of trying to run the ball Christian McCaffrey. Now, it was encouraging to see Christian McCaffrey a part of the game plan as a key figure, which is what we've seen over the last couple of years when he's been healthy. There's been much debate about how many carries and touches that Christian McCaffrey should get per game. But as we saw, he is the offense. 158 total yards for Christian McCaffrey. Panthers had 203. So 45 total yards outside of Christian McCaffrey on offense. You cannot win that way. You have to have a quarterback who's capable of making the big plays. And as we saw on Sunday, they were afraid to let P.J. Walker do anything. And you can say, hey, why not have P.J. throw ball down the field? Every time he did, he was wildly inaccurate. And we've seen in the past. Last season against Arizona, 2 years ago against the Detroit Lions. 3 interceptions in those games. When given the opportunity, P.J. Walker will turn it over. Steve Wilks was not willing to take that risk, and he went to the conservative approach, and it led to the same result that we've seen over the last now 39 games here in Carolina.
I understand the conservative approach by Wilks in a certain respect, especially because, like you said, who the quarterback is in the game. But, I mean, end of the half, about a minute and a half remaining, Rams winding the clock down. Wilks doesn't use any of the timeouts. They had a chance to maybe go kick a field goal, right? And then on every third down and medium or even long, it was horizontal pass to the sideline, screen pass. Like, at some point, if you're the interim coach, what do you have to lose? Like, get a slant route or something. Throw it a couple of yards down the field.
Yeah, you think that would be the case. I don't really know how else to justify it other than he just doesn't believe in the quarterback. And let's be honest here. Matt Rule, who brought P.J. Walker here to Carolina, believed in P.J. so much that he signed Cam Newton, who had not been on a team basically all season long after Cam was cut in New England a year ago. He played Cam Newton after 10 days of being on the roster. That's how much faith that coach had in Matt Rule. Now Steve Wilks, who David Tepper told us last Monday, has to do an incredible job just to be considered for the full-time gig, not to be a part of it to get the full-time job, to be considered for the full-time job. He's not going to put that on P.J. Walker clearly. So in the future, what that tells me, whenever Baker Mayfield or Sam Darnold are healthy, that will be the starting quarterback, and maybe we'll see a semblance of some sort of aggressive offense. He did bring up the fact that a couple weeks ago against, it was San Francisco actually last week, when Baker Mayfield threw the pick six right before halftime when they were being aggressive. He did not want to be aggressive this week and did not want to be in that same situation. And they were having the lead. They were up 10-7. So I imagine he was thinking, all right, mission accomplished. We won the first half. We won time of possession. But over 60 minutes, that's just not a winning strategy for the Carolina Panthers. I really don't know what it's a winning strategy when you have P.J. Walker as your quarterback you don't trust, and when you have guys like Jeremy Chin who didn't play, Dante Jackson going out injured, same thing with C.J. Henderson. You're down to Tay Hayes, J.C. Horn. How are you going to win when the defense is banged up in the secondary, can't get off the field, and, of course, offensively, you don't have a quarterback who you trust to move you down the field, and really you never attempted it. But we all know what the result probably would have been.
All right, you mentioned the numbers behind McCaffrey's Sunday. I thought that, there's reading between the lines. I thought that was kind of reading between the pages of the playbook. A shift in philosophy from a coaching staff under Matt Rule that really didn't feed McCaffrey as much as a lot of people thought they should. Do you think that's kind of like shows a little bit of where the disconnect was now that Wilks goes on and does it?
Yes and no. Matt Rule gave us mixed messages over the course of his tenure here. He was saying last season how, hey, we're not an elite passing game. He loved to use the word elite, and oftentimes in the wrong context, but he loved to use that word. And he meant last year saying, hey, Sam Darnold, not very good. Offensive line, terrible. So what we need to do is run the football. So they did that. But then later on, they were talking about in the offseason, we need to be a power rushing attack, why they brought in Deontay Foreman, why they brought in some of these bigger offensive linemen like Bradley Bozeman, who we have not seen at center, Austin Corbett, and, of course, Ike Ekwonu, who they called a tone setter in the run game. Then fast forward to a couple weeks ago, he's saying we need to be a passing team because all the successful teams in the NFL have these passing attacks and can use it later on in the season in December and January and, of course, in the playoffs. Well, Patrick Mahomes isn't play here. Neither does Josh Allen or Justin Herbert or any of the top quarterbacks in the NFL. And Steve Wilks did say last week what they need to do is be able to stop the run on defense and establish the run on offense. So I don't know if necessarily there's a disconnect. It's also just recognizing, like, McCaffrey's our best player. We need to give McCaffrey the ball. That's coaching the coaching staff's mindset. So here, Christian, take it, do what you can do. And also recognizing, hey, like the quarterback, we can't let him put the ball in danger, which is what he's done in the past.
The firing of Matt Rule comes a few weeks before the NFL's trade deadline. While we're on McCaffrey, I mean, reports coming out that, yeah, sure, the Panthers will listen, but it's got to be a couple first. Do you see Carolina moving on from Christian McCaffrey at this point?
If the price is right, Scott Fitterer has said before that he would be in on every deal. He promised that when he took the job about, 19, 20 months ago, and that has also been to the detriment of the Carolina Panthers and why we're even having this conversation. They own their first, second, fourth, and fifth round picks in the upcoming 2023 draft. Their third and sixth belong to New England. Seventh, I forgot where that one goes because they make so many trades that don't even pan out here in Carolina since Scott Fitterer has been the general manager. For me, it's like McCaffrey's a great player. And when healthy, he's been phenomenal. And you saw it again today. So why would you want to get rid of a great player? But Jonathan Jones was on the NFL Today, who used to cover the Carolina Panthers, now works for CBS Sports as their lead insider, and he was saying if it's a first-round pick, the Panthers would be very likely to make that trade, or if it's multiple picks, they'd be likely to make that trade. I just don't know when they talk about making it an attractive job, especially when the reports also from Jonathan were that they want to look at an offensive play caller. Well, wouldn't every offensive play caller be even more attracted to this job if it's Christian McCaffrey and DJ Moore here on this offense, and then you can bring in your own quarterback? Then if you get rid of McCaffrey, it might make sense logistically to be able to continue to build, especially considering the running back position is something that's easily replaced. Now, are you going to get another Christian McCaffrey? Unlikely not. But also just the value of his contract. Is it really worth it in the end? So I can see both ways. Personally, for me, I would rather keep a great player around than not have a great player. But if the team's not going to be any good, then what's the point?
Speaking of trade candidates, it seems like a trade of Robbie Anderson right now would be the best case scenario because don't you think after the latest sideline antics, getting in the face of his position coach, being kicked off the field and out of the game by his interim head coach, that Robbie Anderson's played his last game as a Carolina Panther?
You would think, and honestly, I'm going to give credit to Robbie Anderson. I've certainly been critical of him in the past, especially when he's called out the fans back home about booing Sam Darnold last year when they replaced Cam Newton, they replaced Sam with Cam, and then also early on in the season, the boos and him talking about how you're not real fans. Well, Robbie Anderson's done absolutely nothing here in Carolina to garner really anyone's love. He had a great season in 2020, but last year was awful. Quarterback play didn't help. This year has been basically a non-factor. So I don't really know where he gets off in criticizing the fan base when he, the player who's getting paid millions, cannot produce on a weekly basis and then has these issues we've seen on the sideline. We saw it last year. Eagles game. And I'm not going to sit around and say it's a sideline tirade. He had a temper tantrum. This is the guy's job. He's put in blood, sweat, and tears in many years to sacrifice his body to be in a position that he's in the National Football League. And he brought that up that, hey, I want to be a winner. I want to play for my team. I was confused why I'm not out there on third down, especially when he's a number 2 wide receiver on this team. But it just is not a healthy environment at this point in time. And when the guy who brought him here, Matt Rule, his college coach, is no longer here, and there's already been rumors in the past that teams would be interested in Robbie, what's the point? Might as well just move on, get what you can get. Also hearing from JJ that you can possibly get a 6th-round pick for him if you're Carolina. So you get a 6th-round pick. Hey, you recoup a pick you've already lost, especially if it's in 2023. And you can move forward with guys like Shai Smith and Terrace Marshall, who you drafted and don't have a ton of money tied up in. So, yeah, I would think it would make a lot of sense to move on, but we'll see what the market and how it materializes over the next couple of days, whether Robbie Anderson's still here in Carolina this time next week.
Yeah, Fox broadcast reported that Baker Mayfield, it just sounds more severe than we probably thought, especially because he was on the border of being activated Sunday. I mean, what is the approach to the quarterback position to the season? I mean, because, even if Baker comes back, it's between Baker Mayfield and Sam Darnold and P.J. Walker, Jacob Eason. I mean, where is it? A little lift there, but where is this thing going ultimately for Carolina?
It looks like they're going to the bottom of the NFL. Well, they're already there, but the quarterback position, it says something to me when P.J. Walker is 10 of 16 for 60 yards over the course of the game. They don't want to have him do anything. And then Jacob Eason comes in for one drive, 3 of 5 for 59 yards. Basically the same production. Now, Christian McCaffrey made a great play. Let's not sit here and act like Jacob Eason went out there and was lighting it up.
Down the field.
And they had no choice. They were down 2 scores. And I think the game plan would have been the same had Jacob Eason been down there. Jacob Eason's not the way moving forward. P.J. Walker is not the way moving forward, but as long as he's the only healthy, experienced quarterback, he will continue to be the starter. But my thought is, whenever Baker or Sam is healthy, that will be the starting quarterback. Now, thinking about it, though, they talk about with the ligament damage he has in his ankle, and the report from Laura Oakman, and I think from Jay Glazer as well, was the fact that the Panthers are looking for the long term as well. They're eyeing the future. Well, Baker is not the future. Obviously, Sam's not the future. But the future pick is still at stake in 2024. Because if Baker plays 70% of the snaps at quarterback this year, that becomes a 4th from a 5th-round pick. So if he's healthy, fine, play him, but don't play him to the point where he's played 70% and you're losing yet another draft pick like that or another asset. Whenever Sam Darnold's healthy, I would expect that he should be the starting quarterback moving forward. Is that going to yield wins? Probably not. But at this point in time, you need to try and preserve the pick as best as you can. And then I think that probably gives Steve Wilks the best chance to win a game or even win moving forward, which says a lot about where we're at here with the quarterback situation. It's one of the worst in the NFL. Not the one, it is the worst in the NFL. So where it's going, not anywhere on the tracks. It's way off the tracks.
Yeah, I mean, you know these fans. Where are they right now? 1-5. I mean, are they clicking the mock drafts yet? Are they checked out? I mean, this
they're checked
doesn't
out.
Seem to have a way to improve, even if they sneak in a couple more wins.
I don't know, man. It's not good. The vibe here in Carolina is about as bad as I've seen it. We've sat through the 1-5 season, 2001. Then we sat through 2010 and how bad that was. Now, those seasons yielded Julius Peppers the following year. It yielded Cam Newton in one of the most prosperous times we've had here in Carolina. I think the hope for a lot of fans is that maybe C.J. Stroud out of Ohio State or Bryce Young out of Alabama or maybe Will Levis out of Kentucky can be that quarterback savior and can stabilize the position, which is what Scott Fitter's been hoping that can happen. Baker didn't do it. Sam hasn't done it. I don't think Matt Corral is going to get the chance to do it. So I don't think the morale is very high right now. People are certainly looking towards the mock drafts and probably are rooting for Jacob Eason. I mean, bless his heart, to be the guy who starts the rest of the year because that probably yields you the number 1 pick. But I would say to fans, though, if you're the number 1 pick, the quarterback position is an issue. But if you're the last place team in the NFL, you have more than a quarterback problem on this roster. So Derek Brown might be a building block. DJ Moore might be a building block. Brian Burns, some of those other players. But if you're the worst team in the NFL and say you only win 1 or 2 or 3 games, it's not just the quarterback. There are several things that are wrong with your organization. So I don't think just getting a quarterback is going to fix things overnight for Carolina. Obviously, it would go a long way. But I think people right now are, pretty checked out. And there's probably better ways to spend your Sunday. But keep watching WCNC and listening to Locked On Panthers.
All right, well said. Julian Council, Locked On Panthers, every day of the week. He's got you on the podcast.